to worship you, a chance to represent you. Father, I pray that we learn something today so we can do that even better. Father, we love you and adore you. In your name, amen. How many of us have ever played a pickup game? You know, like football or some team sport, you know, where you just have a bunch of guys and gals show up and you just kind of split up, and or, you know, if you're maybe got a few more dollars, maybe somebody will have like colored vests. Or if you ever notice, like, your favorite football team, do they all wear white, both sides? Well, why don't they? So you can tell who's on which team. So the quarterback back there, he's just looking for guys wearing red, right? He's not looking, oh, is that Joe? He can't, he's got the mask on it, the helmet. You can't tell faces. He's just looking for people with red, if that's his team color, right? But if you are wearing a color, you can identify the guys on your team, right? Let's read Revelation part of chapter 13. What's going to happen is we're going to see both kingdoms handing out jerseys. Some are black, some are white. And the question is which team are you on? And who's your quarterback? So in chapter 13, we've been introduced to this dragon. I'm not going to go through a lot of detail here, just to kind of orient you again where we are in this crazy book of Revelation. We've seen this dragon come up out of the sea, remember? And it's got decked out with 7 heads and crowns and all kinds of craziness, right? Remember this thing? And it's obviously a metaphorical representation of who? Satan, right? He's in the previous chapter, he's clearly defined as this dragon sitting before this woman up in heaven that's waiting for her to give birth. And he wants to devour the son, obviously the Messiah 2,000 years ago. And he lost. He wasn't able to kill Yeshua, right? Well, he actually thought he won because he was able to kill Yeshua, but he didn't realize it was a trick. It was part of the plan to redeem us all and give us an avenue to being pure, to have restored wholeness again. Because isn't that the promise? God is saying that if you choose this route, faith, if you choose this route, the promise is, what does God hold out? You'll live with me for, it's immortality with him, living with him forever. That's the promise. And mankind, what has mankind, there's multiple stories from ancient times of mariners and other explorers looking for what? The fountain of life, right? Because everybody wants to live forever. God has provided a means to achieve that. So this dragon appears, and he's a bad guy. And all of a sudden, starting in verse 11, he's got a sidekick. He's called the false prophet. Later on in, I think it's chapter 20, but not here, but he is called the false prophet in chapter 20, and his destiny and life is very short-lived because he's eliminated at the termination of this time, this age. He's terminated. But here he's introduced as a false prophet, I'm just going to call him the sidekick of this dragon, this beast that wants to rule the world. Everybody wants to rule the world, right? Well, this guy does. And he's Satan, and it has been his agenda all along. And all of the signs, these heads that we've talked about, all of these heads represent ancient kingdoms that he was manipulating behind the scenes through its leaders, peace throughout the world. No. He was manipulating behind the scenes with despots. He gave them authority and power to conquer vast regions of the globe. And they were terrorizers. They maligned and murdered, raped and pillaged their kingdoms to get them to succumb and pay tribute. And it's funny, what one thing did these guys have in common? They all were delusional, thinking that they were God. Remember, we've talked about this before. Satan is very deceptive, isn't he? He conned these guys into thinking, even though they were mortal. By the way, to talk about this whole thing is going to take 2 Shabbats to do. But it's interesting that next week, we're going to see that even Satan, he's called mortal. Even he knows he's mortal. Okay, and then we'll look at that verse more closely then. This sidekick is a false prophet. Why is Satan producing a false prophet? What's the purpose there? Mislead in an interesting way. He's trying to do what the real God, the real Messiah does. What does the Old Testament prophetic books say about when God comes back? He's also going to have a prophet Elijah, right? Well, Satan knows this, so he's going, okay, I got a parallel. So, because he's going to represent not Satan. He's not going to represent, okay, everybody, I'm Satan. He's going to say, hey, everybody, I'm the creator God. Is Satan very appealing? No, but God is. So he's going to sell himself as God, and the real God, he's going to claim that he's the Satan. He's the deceiver. Okay? There's a question up here, Jerry. It's going to be reversed, and whoever's got the mic.
When you said appealing, don't you think Satan is going to be beautiful? He's going to look beautiful. People are going to be taken in by that.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's what
he's going to represent. In fact, in Ezekiel 28, I believe, it talks about his. It's either 28 or Isaiah 14. I never can keep them straight, what information is in each one. But one of those two talk about how beautiful he is. And his beauty goes to his head. And he turns out thinking he's God. And he decides in these passages, it tells you the evolution of his thoughts and how he ended up falling away from God and becoming who we know him to be, slowly, bit by bit, because he started to think himself more than what he was. We never do that. So anyway, we got this false prophet thing running around, supporting, encouraging everybody to worship the new God. Problem is, it's a small g God, isn't it? It's this beast that rises up out of mankind, the water. That's what the metaphorical meaning is here. Let me read this bit of text here. Then I saw another beast, this is the false prophet beast, coming out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb. Lamb, that's interesting. Why a lamb? Why not what he really is? But he's a lamb here. In fact, I've looked this word up. It's lamb. It's not a goat. Yeah, what's in the Old Testament, what metaphorical animal does the Messiah, how is he always represented? A lamb, right? Right in Genesis 3, it starts with a lamb was shed to provide a covering for Adam and Eve's sin. So here's this lamb walking around, and don't tell me he's not going to try to represent himself in a real innocent, appealing way. And he spoke as a dragon. He exercises all the authority of the first beast, the dragon, in his presence, and he makes the earth and those who live on it worship the first beast whose fatal wound was healed. Remember one of the heads on this seven-headed monster had a head wound and it was healed. Again, emulating the real real McCoy. He is going to resurrect from the dead, right? You know, somebody that has power over death, that guy is worth listening to, right? And so he causes everybody to worship this beast that has this head wound. And it was in verse 15, and it was given to him to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image of the beast would even speak and cause all who do not worship the image of the beast to be killed? Why so violent? Satan is really interested in your worship. Now, when you don't worship God, what does he do? What does God do? Throws you out on the street, lets you get run over by a truck. No, he goes, okay, we've got time. I'm going to continue to show you my love for you. And he yearns to draw you to himself. What does this guy do? If you don't worship, you're dead. It's interesting. There's descriptors in the Old Testament, in Daniel, that talk about the world and leaders all worshiping this same beast. It's in chapter 11. And they won't do it without a bribe. So he's bribing them. What do you think he's going to bribe them with? U.S. Treasury bills. No, that's not what it says. What do you think he's bribing them with? Come on, you guys. What? Well, that's a very good guess. But what is money in the Bible? Gold. He's bribing them with the most ancient form of money and the biblical form of money. So if you have to bribe somebody to get them to worship you, now that's powerful love, isn't it? Did your spouse, was that person bribed? If not, that's kind of a lousy basis for a marriage, isn't it? Hey, I've got 10 grand if you'll marry me. How many bought that? You wish he had 10 grand maybe, but. And he caused all, the small and the great, the rich and the poor, and the free and the slaves, to be given a mark on their right hand and on their foreheads. Is that new? Is that something new, that concept? We'll find out. And he decrees that no one will be able to buy or sell, except the one who has the mark, either the name of the beast or the number of his name. So this mark is either going to be the name of the beast and or, it's probably a combination thereof because of by the next verse here, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast. For the number is that of a man, and his number is 666. And the number is that of a man. So this beast is a man? Remember, where did he come out of? He came out of people. How do we know that? He came out of the sea. Well, sea is metaphorical for mankind. So this thing is going to be a man. He's going to purport, it's going to be a phony resurrection, but he's going to purport that he's returned from the dead. He's been killed and he has power over death. You know, this is a powerful line of evidence that he's going to give. What do you think most people are going to do? We're going to find that in further on in the text, that his sidekick, his false prophet, his Elijah, is able to call fire down from heaven. I think we already talked about that. That was already in previous weeks. That's pretty powerful. To do what the prophets of Baal in Elijah's day weren't able to do. I mean, how many of us can call fire down from heaven? Jim? No, nobody can do that. So that is going to be, and you know, us, we believe in miracles. Most of the world, they don't believe in miracles. This guy's going to do miracles. It's going to be moving. Plus, there's going to be a threat behind it. How much do you like your life? 2 people's hands, three people. So it's interesting that he's putting marks on people, on their forehead and on their hand. Now, we're going to learn that this is not novel, this is not new, but what's the number? 666. Why not like something fun, like change it up, 384? Or why not 2222? Why not 20 letters or numbers?
Body, soul, and spirit.
Why not just 1? Everybody wants to be number 1. Right? Why not just be wearing 1s everywhere? Have you ever thought about it? Why did God allow this thing to have a number that was 666? Is that just for fun? Or is there a message here? Yeah, there's a message, isn't there? And let's see, I'll make sure I'm not jumping too much here. This message is much more than what we're all aware of. You know, in Hebrew, each letter, you know, it's the numerical value of his name. So everybody's been running around the landscape going, okay, Reagan, convert that into Hebrew and count the numbers of the value of or how about Clinton? You know, they always pick U.S. presidents for some reason. Is that his origin? Well, the best guess is he has nothing to do with the United States. He might be a citizen, I don't know. But the best guess, the best passages suggest he's an Assyrian. But that's not for sure. We don't know who this guy is, but people run around the landscape counting up names everywhere. They're taking their English or whatever letters they are converted into Hebrew, and they add up, you know, like Aleph. What's Aleph?
4.
It's numerical number. What is it?
1.
One, thank you. That was not hard, right? And so Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav. It's the sixth letter. Its numerical value is 6, right? And then it goes on up to 10, and then it goes 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and then it jumps into the hundreds. And so you can basically take any name that has been converted correctly, because there's some names that aren't Hebrew. So you can convert them into Hebrew, but are you spelling it correctly? Is there a silent letter? Is it like an aleph or a vav or an ayin? Those are all silent letters. Are they in there somewhere? Did you forget one of those? So it's a, in my opinion, it's a waste of time to try to figure out Reagan's numerical Hebrew value. Now, I tended to like Reagan. He better not be the beast, but that's a whole nother topic. But it's interesting that God would give us this bit of information. Why do you suppose he gave us the book of Revelation? He needed a kind of a, let's wrap this up. And we'll slap it right onto the end and we'll have an ending. Or was it, of course, that's ridiculous. Do you think that he thought through this? I want to end with the fulfillment of everything that's been prophesied. And it'll be contained, the fulfillment will be contained in this last book. So, do you think he would want us to read that last book? Yeah, you think so, right? That'd be a good conclusion. So he put in here 666. Why? He may not want us to go on a mission counting up everybody's name on the globe and see if they add up to 666. But he's trying to give us insight. So when this guy does come around and he starts doing these things, like somebody ever purports to resurrect, he has a head wound. It's not a foot wound or a chest wound, it's a head wound. Some guy with a head wound comes back to life. I'm getting out my calculator. Right? How many times would I have calculated somebody's name? 0. Nobody with a head wound has ever come back to life. In fact, there's been nobody come back to life except one guy, right? And that was before my time, way before. I know you think I'm old, but it was way before my time. And that was, of course, Yeshua, right? So we've got this very interesting mark that is composed of 3 numbers. Why 3 numbers? Is there a question over here? Yeah.
Could it be also the 666 means that, how the Antichrist sits in the temple of God, which is going to be like a third temple physically, but also he wants to sit in our temple, body, soul, and spirit, almost like a satanic trinity,
Yeah.
because it's 3 and we are made of body, soul, and spirit. So
Yes.
there's a lot of going on also with DNA changing and all that. So could it be?
It does speak of the, I don't want to use that phrase, the 3 essences of God, but it also speaks of the 3 essences of you and me. But it also, what else comes in 3s? Covenant, right? Mm-hmm. And we're going to see, it might have something to do with covenant, you think? We'll see. Yeah.
Yes.
Good insight.
Too. Yes.
So, yes, there's 3 6s that are involved in identifying this beast. God marked out his people, didn't he? If we take in fact, in this book, in Revelation, who did he mark out? Remember back in chapter 7? Remember 7? He marked out a bunch of people. Who were they? Everybody knows what they're called, who they're called. The 144,000, right? He marks them out. God's marking people out. And now Satan's marking, everybody's marking people out. These two beings, one holy and the other one completely unholy, are dividing up teams. And they're putting on jerseys. Exodus 13:9. It says, and it shall serve, let's see. It says, let's see the context. For 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. Unleavened bread shall be eaten throughout the 7 days. No yeast, and you shall tell your sons on that day, saying, it is because of what the Lord did for me when I came out of Egypt. And it shall serve as a sign to you on your hand, as a reminder on your forehead. I'm sorry, on your hand and as a reminder on your forehead, that the law of the Lord may be in your mouth. For with a powerful hand the Lord brought you out of Egypt. So he's marking them on their hand and on their forehead. Is this the first marking, by the way, that anybody's done? When was the first mark? Come on, you guys know this. Cain. Excellent. Remember? By God, to protect him. So signs are kind of a wall of protection, maybe, at least coming from God. Satan, it's protection in a different sense. It's protecting you from the truth. So, anyway, what is the mark here? It's the law. And why is it on your forehead and on your hand? Is he saying that there's let's say, I'm going to paint this really cool tattoo on your forehead and on your hand. Is that what he's saying? And then when you see it, you go, oh, yeah, I need to not lie right now. Is that what he's communicating? He's actually putting literal marks. No. Whenever you see this kind of metaphorical statement in the Old Testament and New, it's what is behind your forehead? Your mind. What does the hand or sometimes the feet represent? The direction you go and the things you do, right? What do you build? Right? It's kind of like the word life is chai. It's a chet yud yud. And the pictography there is the wall that the hands of God have built. Everything that has life, God put walls around it. Why? Protection. Radiation, too much heat, too much cold, skin and fur, the atmosphere of the earth. And what else does it protect from? Untruth, right? Protects our mind. It protects the direction we go and what we do. If we follow what? The guidepost, which is the law here. And if you do that, what do you represent? You represent the God, the creator God, and God, it's interesting, God chooses to be represented by the law. So if you see the law, you think of God. When you see kindness and love and appreciation and thankfulness and helpers, you should think of God. Now, what's Satan's posture to the law? In Daniel, it says, and he will attempt to change the law. The word for law there is Torah. He will attempt to change it. Why? Because he doesn't want us to think of God. It's kind of like when you have a Mickey Mantle baseball card. Who do you think of? Me? No, you think of a real great baseball player. Well, that's the way the law works. When you see somebody on their own initiative without any hope for any benefit to themselves go and help somebody across the street, figuratively, God's saying people will go, that's not normal. So how many of us are being not normal? And I mean that in the sense I know a lot of us are not normal, including me, but I'm not talking about that not normal. So this mark on the hand and on your forehead represents what you think and what you do. You know, in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, it's known as the love chapter. So love is kind, love is patient, it's gentle, it's long-suffering, it doesn't keep a record of wrongs, it hopes all things, bears all things, memorize it. How many of those are warm, fuzzy things? Because people want love, they think it's a warm, fuzzy thing. How many of those are, when you're kind and gentle and patient and you don't keep a record of wrongs, what are you doing? You're doing. Your hands, your mind is choosing to do the law. Because all of those, Paul, when he wrote 1 Corinthians 13, he was echoing the Old Testament law. If you manifest the law, you'll be kind, you'll be gentle, you'll be patient on down the road. The law expresses the love of God through you to others. That's why Satan hates the law, because he doesn't want you to be a conduit of the Creator. He wants you to be a conduit of his law. Oh, he'll have a law, but it won't include worshiping the real God, will it? So this is the real difference, and this is how we earn our jerseys. Are we choosing to follow the ways of God? Or are we choosing to follow, I don't feel like doing that. Plus, I think it's it's been abolished. That's been 3,500 years ago, for crying out loud. How can anything last that long? It was maybe applicable to Moses and the first few generations after that. But we live in a high-tech society now. We're not wandering around in the wilderness. We now live in fabulous cities with technology coming out of our ears. The law's got to change over time. Right? No. The law is still applicable. No matter how high-tech you think you are, you can still love and be kind and gentle and not remember other people's wrongs, and you can forgive and be forgiven. So there's multiple other places in the Bible where God's marking out people. For example, I'll just get a few here. 2 Corinthians 1:22, and I'll just read clippets of the verse. You can go and take these home and look them up yourself. This is in reference to God, who has marked us and gave us the Spirit in our hearts as a pledge. So God is marking out believers by what? This time it's not the law. He's giving us a mark as, what happened on Shavuot after the first Shavuot after the resurrection. He gave them a sign, a mark. This word mark can be, it can mean sign or mark, which, we won't. Usually this word is oat, which is Aleph Tav, and so both Satan and the beast are Aleph Taving you, or want to. They all want to mark you. It's the same mark that, remember the first Passover? What did God have the Israelites do? Put oats, not food oats, mark oats over their doorpost and on the sides of the three of them, right? Oat, 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 right? So this mark is he's sending you a partner, a comforter to guide you. Now it's interesting that, I just said this time it's not the law. What's the primary purpose of the Spirit of God? To lead us into all truth. And what's the primary core of truth in the Bible? The law, Torah. Ephesians 1:13, in him, having also believed, you were sealed, marked in him with the Holy Spirit on the promise. The promise of what? What's the promise that has not been fulfilled? Eternal life, right? Ephesians 4:30, do not grieve the Holy Spirit by whom you were marked, sealed for the day of redemption, right? So don't grieve them. In other words, don't be a contradiction. Don't go around town wearing a mark and do exactly the opposite, right? And how many of us do that? It's much easier, like there's people that are just angry. And that's their mark. That's their jersey. But they run around town with a big smile on their face. Why? Because anger doesn't get you any cookies. But if you're kind, it does. But when they're driving down the street by themselves or at home, they're a jerk. Because it's their true identity. So also should not be believers who run around the landscape doing the same, right? We should always be true to our jersey. So if you're on the team and you go out for a pass, you don't catch the ball and then run in the opposite direction and score for the other side. Is that what we're doing? Well, if you're obeying another oat, another mark, another identifying marker, you are. But most of you in here represent yourself to be believers. So are you true to your calling? I hate it when you do this, John. I don't want to be convicted. Let's talk about love. Isn't that more fun? Yeah, this mark of the beast stuff is just really ugly, and there's more to come. This mark is really an ownership identity marker, isn't it? God is putting marks because how does God own you? There's a passage that he has purchased you right? He's paid your debt of sin. So he's the purchaser. So now we serve him. Is that where he wants us to stay? You lowly servant. No, covenant, he goes, look, first, sir, get all the lead out of your life. Get all the black, dark sin out of your life through servanthood. Serve me by doing the law. As you integrate love into your life, etc., what does he do? In the New Testament, he says, Yeshua said, I no longer call you servants, I call you friends. He's offering them the next covenant. Remember, there's 4 actually. And he also says, I no longer call you friends, I call you sons, which is the next covenant, inheritance covenant, right? Satan is not. He's offering, it's interesting, he's offering the same covenants. And people are in love with their standards. So this, I said earlier that this mark 666 is, yes, it's a numerical value of whatever this guy's name is. It's going to add up to 666, but that's just the surface meaning here. It's much deeper and much more intimate and much more relational than that. This number is a describer of the intimacy, the level of intimacy that these people that take on this mark have with somebody. They're totally invested in their team. They're like in the field and cheerleaders on the side. They're totally involved, which is a good thing if you're on the right team. A bad thing if you're not. So there's so much more. Let's talk about just what is being implied here. And in order to do that, we have to go back to Genesis. Oh, really? Yes, the whole book is a panorama of God's working with man. So should this number be. And that's exactly what it is. Remember when they sinned and God threw them out of the garden, and he put a cherub at the doorway of the gate of the garden, and they couldn't get back into the garden. No more peaches. Without working for it anyway. What else were they barred from? What was in the garden? A tree, trees. There's a special tree there. Tree of life, right? I should have pulled this up because it's profound. But it says that he barred them from the tree of life because if they, in their sin, these people are now dead to life and existence with God. And what does God say after he puts this cherubim there? It says that I'm going to bar them from access to the tree of life, because if I don't, they'll be in their sinful state and live forever. Well, thanks a lot. Now I'm going to die. Why would he be so mean? Why not just let us keep eating those fruit from the tree of life in our sinful state? Well, why not? Let's make that work. Thank you, Hugh. God does not want us to be dead. He does not want us to be animals. We were created for a very important purpose, and that is to befriend, to fall in love, to serve, and manage God's estate. Right? And we failed at that. And God doesn't just throw us in the middle of the street and let a bus run over us. He goes, okay, I can solve this problem, but it's going to take some time and some effort. It's going to require faith on your part, and on my part, it's going to require death. Because somebody's got to pay for your death, and the only way you pay for it is through blood. The price for sin is bloodshed, and that's a metaphor for dying. Okay, so we have this symbol, 666. And what does this have to do with the tree of life? What do you suppose, what's the number that means perfect, complete? 7, right? We know that because it was perfect and complete on the 7th day of creation, right? So what do you think God's number is, other than 1 or 3? It's 7, because who's the only thing that's perfect and complete? God, right? So he called us very good on the 6th day. He goes, man, I did a good job. He's not bragging. He's just saying, this turned out really good. These humans are really cool. I'm going to love them right into my presence. And he already knew what we were going to do. What do you suppose, if his number is 7, what do you suppose our number was before we fell? 7. But there's 3 parts of us, right? Isn't there? You were talking about it earlier. We're made, we don't have 3 personhoods, do we? If you do, you have a mental problem, right? You have one personhood. God has one personhood. He represents himself in different relational, in different relationships to us. Sometimes he's dad. Sometimes like he said, we're now friends. Sometimes he says we're now sons. We're now in the same family. Sometimes he's the father, husband. At the end of the book, what is he? A groom. Right? Sometimes he puts on different hats, and that's why it's important when you're reading a text with his name in it or a reference to him, find out how he's representing himself. Is it Yahweh? Is it El? Is it Elohim? Is it Yah? Is it a title or is it a name? You think that makes a difference? Yes. Sometimes when you write a real stern letter to somebody you're in charge of, you're not going to put down your best friend, John. You're going to put down Mr. Klein. I got some bad news. You're the authority. But when you're writing a friend letter, you're going, hey, bro, da-da-da-da-da. Well, God does the same thing. So you want to hear his voice when he's writing. And he's got all these hundreds of pages that he's written love letters just to you. Sometimes they're firm, but sometimes they're fun. And he reveals his heart to you the more he's having fun with you. And the more he's having fun with you, it's a measurement of how holy, how much of the jersey you're wearing of his, right? So each one of our 3 sevens represent our mind, which if you look up the word mind in Hebrew, it's nephesh, okay? It means mind, emotion, your character, the essence of who you are, right? And then what else? We have the body and the spirit. So we're triune, aren't we? Just like God. God's triune. Remember, we're created in his likeness. By the way, Satan wants to steal that, but that's a whole nother topic. We were a 777. When we fell, we became 666. No longer perfect. And God's going, okay, I got a plan. Want to hear what it is? I can get you back to 777. Next week, we're going to learn why he can't be with a 6. And when we do turn to 7s, he shows up and dwells with us forever. But there's an evolution of it, which is profound, and it shows his heart, how anxious he is. So these 6s represent fallen states of our relationship with him. You can still be a 6 and be fully engaged with God. Worst bunch of 6s, but we should be moving towards 7s. And we'll get into how we do that. But in the end, at the great white throne judgment, at the resurrections that are at the end of the book, there's one thing that stands out mostly. How much money you have in the bank? No. Your investments. Nobody's buying this. How about the business you own? That is really important. You spend a lot of time doing it, or it's your job. You think that'll count? Yes, it will, the management thereof. How about your car? Will that count? How good you were in sports. A lot of us spend a lot of time getting ourselves in shape so we can play really well. And it has some value. Will God go, okay, Joe, let's see, your win-loss record is pretty bad. You see this? No. He's not going to look at your win-loss record, right? You do, but that's not what counts in the end. Or how well you play video games. How about that? That's important. And how many video games are you in the top 100 in? And what's your ranking? Do you know what your ranking is? What's the only thing that's going to count? What? Holiness. And what's another name for holiness? Obedience. I like that. But there's another name that covenant represents. You know the word covenant in Hebrew, the definition of it is to sit down at a meal with somebody. What? Well, in ancient times when you sat down with somebody to eat, remember that verse that says, don't even eat with somebody like that. What on earth? Because having dinner with somebody was like a covenant expression. The angels that appeared to Lot, he let them in the door and they had dinner. And this is over the top, but he was going to give his daughters up to the mob outside to protect these two people that he was in covenant with. A covenant is a commitment to protect and guard something, whatever the covenant is. God's made a covenant with you to protect and guard and direct you. We get to choose whether we want it or not, which is like, the creator of the universe wants to make a deal with me. Yes.
So relationship?
The only thing that's going to matter is relationship. So what's your relationship look like? It's God's going to, it's Matthew 24. He goes, I think this is in the context of the virgins. What does he say to them? I think it is. He says, I never knew you. What? What's knowing mean? If you know somebody, in Hebrew, to know, in sign language, it's this. In Hebrew, it's to know information, but also it had a huge meaning, equaling when Adam knew Eve, they had offspring. So it was an intimate knowing, but also intimate informational knowledge. In other words, you guys talk. Your best friend, why are you best friends? Because you know the guy or the gal, and you like them. And so you build this relationship with them. You can trust and depend and rely on them, right? When God comes back, the only thing that's going to count is, do you know him? And much more important, does he know you? A lot of people run around the landscape, but all safe. They feel they're safe and great because, yeah, I know God. Let me tell you, Satan knows God. Is that going to save him? We're going to get to some verses. I'll tell you, no. But that's next week. So does God know who you are? Have you ever laughed with him? You ever cried with him? I'm more crying than laughing. Mostly about my behavior, but that was another topic. Do you have a rapport with him? Do you spend time talking with him? It doesn't have to be 3 hours a day. It can be 3 minutes. But, Paul says, pray without ceasing. Let me represent that differently. Keep him in mind without ceasing. Okay? Because prayer is the conscious awareness that God is right here. That keeps me, to the best of my ability, true and honest when I'm up here. As you run around your life and do whatever God's calling you to do, he's right there. And man, that should send fear down your spine. Because I don't want to misrepresent him. We don't want to speak for him and God's going, what are you drinking? I never said that. How many would like to hear that? Man, I was watching, what's that series called? That Christian series about the life, what? Chosen last night. Jody and I hadn't watched the last 2 of season 4, so we watched that. And during part of that movie, it was like, I was looking at the actor that was representing Yeshua, Jesus, right? And it kind of scared me because he was angry for a little bits of it. Because he's like, at the end of that season, he's at the threshold of the cross. And it scared me in as much as, oh man, I got to be careful. Because we represent light, and it's capital L light. One, how much light do you know, and how much light do you think you know? That's the part that scares me. I think I know a lot, but how much of it is really true? So you will find me listening to and reading lectures and the Bible again and again, the same passage. Why? Because as you get older, guess what happens? You get smarter and smarter and your brain gets clear. No. It runs out. And I'm convinced your IQ goes down, which is proven now that it does, and I can witness to that. All 98 IQ points of mine are now descending quickly, and my memory is not serving me as well. So I'm continually putting the same information back in. Why? Because I'm an idiot? No, because I want to represent him correctly. And in that pursuit, I realize he's right by my side. And you know what's cool about, I wasn't going to talk about this, but what's cool about all of this is if you put it in, he'll bring it out. So many times I'm sitting there going, yeah, I know you want me to talk about that, but I can't remember it. You know, how many of you used to know information that now you can't quite dig out, especially the intimate details? Oh, there's tons of stuff. And I look these things up all the time to refresh. 3 weeks later, I'm going, let's see, what was that again? If you put it in and God needs it, even though you can't remember the details, this has happened many times with me. And sometimes even when I was young, I would say stuff. I remember one time I was with my mom, and she was a prayer warrior woman, just awesome Christian. And she would have ladies over, and she would minister to them through friendship. And so occasionally I'd be walking by during the course of this hospitality she was throwing, and I would listen in. And one time I piped in, and I said, I don't know what I said, but afterwards, after this lady went home, my mom came up to me and said, where did that come from? I go, what are you talking about? And she said, well, this, where did you learn that? And I said, well, at the time I didn't think anything of it. But after she brought it out, I go, well, it's interesting. I didn't know that. That information, I didn't know it. Is it true? God, even if you don't put it in, and he really needs it said, but especially if you've been a good steward of truth and you can't remember it, many times I've got, okay, God, I'm going to start talking. It's happened up front many times. I'm going to start talking. You better have the words ready to go, because I don't know where I'm going, because I don't remember this packet of information that I learned 40 years ago, but can't remember now. And so many times he has never failed me. You know, the deal I made, the pact I made with God before I ever started speaking was, okay, because I was shy, I stuttered, and a crowd was 2, okay? So I made a deal with God. I go, if I show up and do this, you have to show up. He will never fail you. So what am I saying? We're out of time. What I'm saying is, if you put on the right vest, God will always be there for you. If you put on the vest marking you out as part of his team, part of his family, God will always show up. God does call us to be in relationship with him, to pursue him with all of our strength, all of our mind, and all of our body. And as we make that commitment, he's like, you sin, but he's applauding you, right? Because he can rely and depend on you to, in a spot when he needs somebody to stand up and say something, even if that somebody doesn't know, they have enough trust and reliance and strength of a relationship to still stand up and say something, even if they don't know what they're going to say. Yes.
In Genesis, where God says, let there be light, and he saw the light that it was good.
Yeah.
The Hebrew for the light there is et haor, and the numeric value of et haor is 613, clearly representing the 613 mitzvot of Torah. So he's calling the Torah light there, that it was good. So the foolish virgins that have no light, they have no Torah.
Even what? Churches? Is that what she said?
Foolish virgin.
The parable of the 10 virgins.
Oh, yes.
The 5 foolish virgins that have no light.
Right.
They have no Torah.
Right, they have no Torah. You know, next week, we're going to talk about a little bit about Torah. I'm going to talk about what is abominable, because this 666, the sign that we're going to jump into a little more in depth next week, it turns out to be abominable. And so I've done this superficially in the past, but this time I kind of went into it a little more. I wanted to find out everything that was, in the Old Testament, there's certain sins that he uses abomination. This is abominable to me, which is it's like the worst word you can come up with that means don't do this, because it's terrible, right? There's no word more than abomination. So I wanted to, what is abominable to God? Any speculation? Yeah, yes.
Deceitfulness,
Right.
Those are, yes, to one degree, but I'm talking about abominations. What are those? Think about the worst of it.
Bearing false witness.
Adultery, bestiality. Okay, that's the vein I'm in, okay? Guess what else is abominable? I agree with you there, but the Bible doesn't spell that one out. But there's one other that blew me out of the water. Could be, but I didn't run into that one. It was non-kosher. It's in the league with bestiality. Okay, that kind of blow away, isn't it? So, when you get home today, all the pork and lobster and crab in your freezer, the point of these marks is that there's one mark that is a sign of the covenant that represents holiness. I want that jersey. How much do you want that jersey? These jerseys don't come for free, because your team, especially in our day, loses. Oh, we had a victory a week ago, maybe. We'll see how he works out. But mostly, if you're a technician in the stock market, stocks will do like this. They'll go up and down and up, and they'll go making new highs, but then each low is a little higher than the previous low, right? And each high is higher. Well, the opposite is also true. What are you investing in? Are you going down, a sawtooth going down? You might have some short-term successes, but what's the long term? Is your life exemplified by making new lows? Those stocks you don't want to invest in. You don't want that jersey. It's the losing team. The winning team in the long run is God's. But sometimes we lose. It looks like we're going down. Good people die. Goodness loses. And we need to throw that out. God never promised that in the short run, everything comes up roses. Sometimes we lose. Why? Why do we lose? Because he's trying to make you into something much more powerful. Somebody asked me a question about the 1,000-year reign the other day, and the response is the same response that I'll say in closing. God's purpose to make you powerful is, one, you have a mission. I don't care how old you are, or how dumb you think you are, or how ineffective you think God has you on a mission in life, and you have something to accomplish. We need to look for that mission and be mindful of that, long-term and short-term, today and 10 years from now. But also, in regards to when he comes back, to the degree that you have accomplished the mission that he has for you now, will be the degree of your authority in the age to come. So you can be cleaning toilets, in 1 Corinthians, chapter 14? Everybody's works is tested by fire, and somebody has it all burnt up. And that person still goes to be with God. Is that what you want? Is that what I want? Pick the right jersey and make sure the color isn't fading. Make sure it's getting brighter and brighter and brighter. God will show you how to do that. Let's pray. Father, we come before you. We love you. Father, I pray that you would make us even more fervently bright. Next week, we're going to learn about light and how it's a metaphor for you. Father, I pray that we become your light. We become candles that are just bright, burning bright. We don't put ourselves, under a bushel on top of a hill, which is kind of a contradiction in terms, isn't it? Father, I pray that we become bold. Our shyness is removed. Our hesitancy about our quality, about our responsibility is removed, and it's replaced with your expectations, your plan. And I pray that that mark glows. In your name, amen. You all rise for the Aaronic blessing.
Yivarecha Adonai v'yishmerecha Ya'er panav elecha v'yihuneka Isa Adonai panav elecha v'yisem lecha shalom V'yisem lecha shalom. This is the way you shall be blessed from day to day. He'll be your rest.
May the Lord bless and keep you. May his grace and his face shine upon you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace.
And give you peace.
And give you peace.
And give you peace. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom.
Hey, join me with the blessing over the bread. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lahem min haaretz. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. Shabbat shalom. Thank you.